He comes into the store every few days in the early morning looking for a certain spice, looking for the ingredients to recipes he doesn't know. I do not tell him I know he is dying. How do you make gravy, he asks. She used to make the best gravy, even better than my mother's. I tell him to cook a roast with potatoes and carrots and onions and to save the drippings and mix them with flour and salt. He gives me a blank look. He doesn't know what drippings are or how to cook a roast. And the package of sugar he is holding slips forgotten from his hands. I miss her, he says. Today, my coworkers and I are packaging herbs and spices, measuring boxes of exotic powders and into tiny bags to be arranged in neat rows on our store-wide wall of spice. Oregano climbs our clothes with static cling. Powdered garlic stench lingers in our hair for days. We have paper masks to save our lungs from the chili powders that burn our skin and make our eyes water until we look like we've been locked in the bathroom crying. He comes in every few days asking questions, and every answer I give him leads to the same slow conversation. I miss her, he says, staring at me sadly as though I could offer him something other than recipes and advice. For months, he's been looking for a certain spice. She put it on everything, he says. Maybe if I used it, breakfast wouldn't be so lonely. I've taken him to the spice walls, showed him every single one of the 273 herbs and powders, half a dozen chilies, 14 curry powders, peppers of every color of the rainbow, but he doesn't know its name, and he stares at me sadly. It was a special spice, he says. It made everything taste like home. I do not tell him I know he is dying. I'm just the cashier at the store where he goes for consolation and cardamom. I'm watching him die of starvation, die of a broken heart because after 72 years of good living, he doesn't know how to take care of himself. As a teenager, he was known for his hands-up skirts, stealing kisses in the schoolyard, source of pregnancy scares, building bad grades and a worse reputation, thriving on the constant distraction of cleavage and thighs and that soft half-moon of back flesh between blouse and skirt. Everything changed when I married her, he says. From the first meal she cooked, I knew I was home. He made a man of himself, made a name for himself, his name gracing street signs and storefronts while his wife kept his back warm, kept his belly full with 3 squares a day. Married at 20, straight from mama's apron strings to wife's kitchen. 50 years of domestic perfection followed by an empty bed. An ignorance of the difference between single and double ply toilet paper, the inability to remember to write down appointments because no one is there to remind him. I miss her, he says, tracing her name in the oregano flakes on my countertop. I miss her cooking. On impulse, I open the box of bulk spice by my feet. I scoop a spoon into the powder and offer it to him. He dips his finger, touches it to his tongue. That's it, he says, smiling for the first time ever. That's her special spice. His voice cracks and he swallows hard several times. So I measure out a package, careful to make it overweight, and press it into his hand. $2, I say. Thank you, I'll see you tomorrow. Potassium nitrate. Saltpeter. Staple ingredient of meals prepared for the American military, used to subdue the hormones of randy young soldiers and keep them focused on the warfare at hand. Secret weapon of housewives wanting to avoid the pain and work of birth and children, wanting to tame an unfaithful husband, wanting to sleep through the night without the interruption of a man's hands. Saltpeter, anti-aphrodisiac, special spice that makes everything taste like home. Today we are packaging herbs and spices. My hands are stained with turmeric and saffron. I volunteered to do the capsicum pepper, active ingredient of pepper spray. The soft webbing of flesh between my fingers tingles and burns. And even that thin paper mask can't stop my chest from hurting and my eyes from watering. Thank you. Enjoy the show.
I'm standing outside in the middle of a field in minus 30-degree weather, in the middle of a basketball court by a basketball pole. And I'm not only cold, but I'm angry, I'm embarrassed, and I'm crying. Now, I've only been suspended from school once in my entire life. It was in grade 8. You'd be surprised that I was suspended at all if you knew me, because I was a quiet kid. You might be surprised that I wasn't suspended more if you didn't know me, because I looked like a troublemaker. For 2 years, from grade 7 to grade 9, I had this giant mohawk. It grew to be like a foot tall. I had it dyed red, pink, blue, blonde. And I'm surprised that I wasn't suspended more because my principal hated me because of my mohawk. Like, anytime we talked, I was getting in trouble. He forced me to take the studs out of my winter jacket because they were weapons and could seriously injure other students. He threatened to send me home if I didn't change into a school shirt that he provided because mine was too inappropriate. It was a t-shirt for the band Rancid. It had a picture of a guy with a mohawk on it. Yeah, I had a mohawk, so by his standards, I was too visually inappropriate for the school. At my grade 8 graduation, he pulled me aside once because I was dancing with a balloon, which he said I wasn't taking graduation very seriously. He pulled me aside twice because I put my rolled up diploma on one of my spikes, which was very disrespectful. And then he threatened to kick me out of my own graduation if I did one more inappropriate thing. So instead of waiting on him to be the judge of that, I took my balloon and my diploma and some of my friends, we left early, went and pissed on the school. All this is to say, like, we didn't really get along, you know, we were enemies. 50-year-old principal of the school and a 13-year-old boy with a mohawk. So I'm a little bit worried when he grabs me by the collar to stop me from entering the school for the start of the day. He tells me I'm in trouble. He says that Alex Masick said I threw a snowball at his head. Which, like, I didn't, okay? Alex is probably lying. Like, we go way back. He used to bully me in elementary school. He used to, like, make fun of my parents for being disabled. Both my parents have cerebral palsy, and he would mock them. He'd be like, I'm Corey's parents, I'm handicapped. So I'd get, like, pissed off, and I'd chase him and try and fight him. Then I'd be the one getting into trouble. And Alex also has a disability. He has one arm, so it's really weird that he didn't have more understanding as a kid. It was a very confusing time in my life. So Alex, Mr. Burridge has me by the coat, which he wouldn't dare grab if I still had my studs. And I'm watching Alex Masick walk into the school, and he's pushing this kid named Cody. And then it all clicks, and I tell him, like, I didn't do anything. I think he said Cody, not Corey. He's like, yeah, you're not getting off the hook that easy. And he grabs me, puts me by the basketball net, and says, wait here. Don't move until I come back and get you. Think about what you did. And he goes into the warm school with all the other students and teachers, leaving me all alone in the snow. 5 minutes go by. I'm angry. Think about what you did? I didn't even do anything. And then I hear the bell ring for homeroom. 10 minutes go by. I'm worried. I'm missing homeroom. He hasn't come out yet. I don't know if I should disobey the principal and go in or get in trouble with all my teachers by staying out here. 15 minutes go by. I'm late. I hear the bell ring for first period. I can see in through the windows to the warm classrooms and all the students filing in. 20 minutes go by. I'm embarrassed. All the kids are looking at the windows and they're all staring at me, laughing. I see one of my friends gesture like, what are you doing? Come in. And they're all just staring at me. I don't know what to do. Like, did he forget about me? Do I mean that little to him? Or is this my punishment, you know, public humiliation? 25 minutes go by. And I'm confused. I don't know what to do. I'm cold. He still hasn't come out. Everybody's laughing at me, so I just start crying. And I don't want the whole school to see me crying, so I just walk away. Not into the school, just off the school grounds. And I walk home. It takes me 45 minutes through the snow, just like crying the whole time, thinking about how I'll be in even more trouble with the principal for not listening to him, in trouble with all the teachers for like missing all of my classes, in trouble with my parents for skipping out on a school day. My mohawk is starting to fall down from all the snow that's like melted onto my hair. And when I get home, my mom tells me that the school is just called. I've been suspended. They didn't call to ask, like, if I was okay, or where I was, just that I've been suspended for leaving the school grounds. And I try and explain everything, I tell my mom everything that happened, and she replies with a simple, well, that's not very fair. And that's it. No punishment, no words of wisdom, no comforting thoughts. And I spend the rest of the day watching TV with my parents in my warm home. And my parents just get it, you know? Like way more than I ever could. You know, they've been treated differently for how they look. They've been stared at, laughed at by groups of people. They've been forgotten. They've literally been left waiting in the snow when the paratransport doesn't show up to pick them up. My parents haven't been really good at communicating ever, so they don't really say anything to make me feel any better. But I don't need them to say anything. You know, this is enough. Thank you.
In the fall of 2015, I spent 3 months backpacking in Europe. Obviously, I was privileged to be able to travel at all, but like every other 20-something seeing the world, I was trying to stretch my dollars as far as they would go. When you're traveling for an extended period of time, at some point you're going to have to do laundry. But washing your clothes in hostels is a huge money suck. I spent €8 on a single load of laundry in Athens, and my clothes weren't even dry at the end of it. I didn't want to budget myself out of essential European experiences, like falling down the steps at the Acropolis, or being yelled at by a French waiter for not finishing my cheese. So my money-saving solution was to do laundry less frequently. This also meant I was stretching the lengths of time between showers, because, well, we all know, it's disgusting to put a pair of dirty underwear back onto a clean body. But if you don't clean that body, you can wear the underwear indefinitely. This strategy was absolutely helping me save money, but about halfway through my trip, I started to feel a little bit off in Rome. Now, I'm a bit of a hypochondriac. I've incorrectly diagnosed myself with everything from mad cow disease to a water allergy. But the problem I was having in Rome was not as serious as those conditions. It was harder to talk about, though. That's right. I thought I might be coming down with a yeast infection. I tried to talk myself out of it. Catherine, you always think there's something wrong with you, and there almost never is. But other thoughts popped into my head too, like, when's the last time you showered? And am I on day 3 or 4 of these panties? I decided to be proactive and find some treatment in a country where most people spoke English, which was Italy. I walked around Rome looking for a pharmacist where a woman was working, because despite the fact that I'm telling this story to hundreds of people, I don't love the idea of talking to men about yeast infections. I found somewhere that looked like a good spot, and I timidly approached the counter and said, I think I have a yeast infection. Infection? She asked. Yes, I repeated. A yeast infection? Yeast? She asked me. I don't know this word. Okay, think, Catherine. It's a fungal infection. I thought I had seen the word fungi somewhere before, so I decided I'd try my hand at Italian. Fungi, I said to her. Fungi infection. She looked confused because where I'd seen the word fungi before was on a box of ristorante frozen pizza. I was telling her I had a mushrooms infection. My next idea was to kind of try to act things out, so I gestured vaguely at my lower abdomen and said, infection? Stomach? She asked. No, not quite. The pharmacist had the brilliant idea to use Google Translate, so she took me over to her computer. I typed in the word yeast, and lievito came up in Italian. Recognition dawned on her face. She went to the shelf, grabbed a box and handed it to me. It was capsules of brewer's yeast. No, I told her. I have yeast. I don't want yeast. She tapped the box enthusiastically. Yes, she said, it is yeast. At this point, my courage was all gone, and there was a line of other customers starting to form behind me. I paid 11 euros, took my box of brewer's yeast, and got the hell out of there. In the days that followed, it became apparent I didn't actually have a yeast infection, but I started showering and changing my underwear a little bit more frequently. I carried my brewer's yeast all the way back to Canada as a reminder that sometimes extreme cheapness can actually end up costing you money. And while that seems like a good note to end the story on, it's not actually the true moral. If you only take one thing away from my experience, it's that you should never, under any circumstances, be afraid to say the word vagina. Thank you.
For Mike Bunnergy. Her name was Kimberly, and she was the most beautiful woman I'd ever seen. But when I tried to speak to her, I just blushed like a shy high school teen. She was working at the animal shelter, training to be a vet, and I knew I had to see her again, so I kept pretending to shop for a pet. I built up the courage to speak to her. I planned out everything that I would say, but when I opened my mouth to speak, there was a long and awkward delay. But she seemed to find it funny and understood what I had planned, and grabbed a big black marker and wrote her number on my hand. I nervously went to pick her up at 7 on a cold, dark Toronto winter's night. But when she answered with that warm smile, I knew the evening would be all right. We went out to a restaurant just down along the street, chatting so much back and forth, we almost forgot to eat. She told me of her dreams to care for animals of all kinds, and not just cats and dogs and birds, but skunks and porcupines. We stayed until the restaurant closed, then went out for a drink. Oh, where did all the hours go? It was faster than a blink. Then walking in the dark, heading towards her place, we started taking baby steps, both trying to slow our pace. I could speak all night to her, it's obvious that we click, but tomorrow's a very long day of work, and I have to be up at 6. We come to a stop outside her place beneath a brick archway, and for the first time in all the evening, we pause with nothing to say. And in that moment of silence, I felt nothing else but bliss, so I courageously leaned into her, and we shared our very first kiss. I walked away from her place feeling really rad, and pulled up my phone to send her a text, saying what a great time I'd had. Back and forth with emoji smiles, it was a silly, cutesy thread. Then suddenly my battery conked out and my phone went totally dead. I shrugged and gave a smile, what an absolutely wondrous state. The only worrying part is that it's now really, really late. Now the quickest way to get home is through the ravine below, even though it has no lighting and is covered entirely in snow. I bundled up my jacket, I could feel the cold night chill, then started tiptoeing carefully down the icy, slopey hill. No moon, no lights amongst these trees, a total darkness zone. No sounds in any direction. I'm completely all alone. Then suddenly something scampered and ran across my feet. So quick it took me by surprise. I could feel my racing heartbeat. What kind of creature was it? Too dark for me to see. So quick it ran beneath the shrub. What could it possibly be? I knew it wasn't someone's dog, too large to be a rat, but much smaller than a fox, and its shape was not a cat. Not a raccoon nor a beaver, it was more kind of round, and I knew it couldn't be a bird, for it scurried across the ground. I thought of every animal I could that might survive the snow, but nothing I thought matched what I saw. My curiosity began to grow. So I got down, looked beneath the shrub, and in a dark nook I could just barely see. That scared little critter was still shaking there, just out of reach from me. Oh, that poor little thing, I felt so bad it appeared to be all alone. And how long had it been in this coal? I couldn't possibly have known. But still it sat there shaking, and my heart began to cry. But this is a time for me to help it. This is no time to just stand by. So I whistled, I barked, I chirped all sorts, every calling call that I could make. But nothing I did made it come out to me. It just sat and continued to shake. And I sat there calling to this poor creature for maybe half an hour, hoping someone would come by to make a call with a phone that still had power. But it started feeling hopeless. Maybe I should give up and just forget. But hang on just a second, I know someone who's a vet. Now she's surely gone to bed right now, but this is a truly noble quest. And I bet I'll win some points with her. No doubt she'll be very impressed. So I ran up the hill back to her place, and on the buzzer number I squeezed. And the voice that eventually answered the call sounded groggy and rather displeased. I'm so sorry to wake you and pull you from your nice warm bed, but your expertise is needed. This is a matter of life or dead. Grab your warmest jacket and bring a bright flashlight, or else this little critter may not survive the night. I grabbed her hand, raced down the hill, and pointed to the spot. And she jumped down to have a look, without a second's thought. And I stood there watching her in action, and my heart began to swell. We're saving this poor critter together. This night's going really, really well. Then, a long pause as she stared into the space, then slowly turned to look at me with a frown upon her face. Frown? So I got down and looked inside, and my heart went from swell to sag. For there in the darkness, shaking, shivering, trembling, was a small, white, plastic bag. Thank you.